Can Kaden Polcovich be an everyday second baseman? Yes. I haven't seen him personally play second base yet. I'm going to get out in about 2 weeks to see the Everett club. But the scouting report is his defense there is already average. He's even played some shortstop in his career. And a chance that he ends up above average at second base. Has good feet. There's enough arm there. He's very quick with his hands. At the plate, he draws walks, has enough raw power to project as an everyday player if he's playing up the middle somewhere. The big question here is the hit tool, because that was supposed to be his calling card. And he's got some swing and miss in his game that I don't like at all, and it worries me when thinking about an everyday player role. That a guy that has some college experience, and granted, only 18 games of Division I experience, but was drafted at Oklahoma State. He was a third-round pick, and hit tool was supposed to be his calling card. And he's swinging and missing a lot. It's early, but again, his strikeout rate, 25%. A quarter of the time he goes to the plate, he's striking out. He's swinging and missing at 15% of the balls that he offers at. That just won't do. That does not translate to consistent hard contact when you look up 3 levels. We just saw an elite prospect in Major League Baseball in Jared Kelenic go to the big leagues and struggle pretty badly. And got taken completely out of his game plan, because I keep saying this, but there are no breaks in the major leagues. You either get a guy who has filthy, nasty stuff, and even some guys that aren't household names have filthy, nasty stuff. We saw Spencer Turnbull. He looked great that day. He threw the no-hitter. It wasn't like this wasn't the Philip Umber perfect game where he's mediocre, but the lineup's so bad that they just helped him. The lineup's bad. Spencer Turnbull is good and has nasty stuff, and he's like a mid-rotation guy. You just don't get breaks. So you either see a guy like that, or you see the Garrett Coles of the world, or you see Shohei Ohtani, or you see guys coming out of the bullpen like Claudio or Steve Cishek, or throwing from funky angles that you haven't seen much of, or guys with like ridiculous deception, guys that coming out of the bullpen are throwing 97 with a breaking ball. And it's like Kelnic's never seen that. So when we're talking about Kaden Polcovich or anybody down in A ball, even in high A, that's an enormous step. So when we're thinking about projecting what Polcovich is doing, again, very, very small sample. It's been a month. But if you're going to strike out 25% of the time, and you're going to swing and miss 15% of the time, suggests you're going to strike out at least 25% of the time, that if you're pushing forward into AA and AAA and ultimately to the major leagues, you're going to strike out too much unless you hit 30 bombs. And that kind of power is not in Polcovich's future. He has time, though. Again, it's just a month. He's just 22. Not a teenager fresh out of high school, but he is just 22. And as the season moves along, I hope those numbers go down. And it has been, he has been pretty good and pretty consistent. But if he has to sell out at all for the punch that he's giving, and the result is that kind of swing and miss, it's just not going to work. So again, very early in the process. At the end of the day, I think Polcovich's ability to move around, including playing a very respectful center field already, is very, very valuable. It's becoming more and more valuable every year at the major league level when players can play not just second base, shortstop, and third base, but also first base, left field, and if center field can be part of that. I mean, think Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor's value has been huge to the Dodgers because they really haven't had a center fielder. Bellinger belongs in right field or at first base. Betts, while he can handle center field, belongs in right field or left field. So Taylor being able to play center and be at least playable there and respectable there has been huge for them as they move guys around and try not to overexpose them in certain spots. I mean, Taylor's played a lot of second and a lot of center field for them. And those are the two positions that Polcovich has played all but one game at this season. He has one start at third base. Everything else is at second and center field. I think he's 14 games at second and 8 or 9 games in center field entering play on Tuesday. So when I think about, can Kaden Polcovich be the everyday second baseman? I think about guys. If we think about who's holding down starting jobs in Major League Baseball right now, we talked about Paul DeJong a little bit ago. Was he a top prospect? No. It's not always the top talents from the draft or prospect rankings or anything like that end up playing every day. Jose Ramirez was not a top prospect. Justin Turner is one of the more underrated players in baseball the last 5 or 6 years, and he came from nowhere. He was not a top prospect at any point. He was a 7th round pick, I think. Polcovich could easily have this kind of path. The skill set he brings to the table should allow him to improve the swing and miss numbers. Strong hands, good hand-eye, some history of very low strikeout numbers. He fanned just 10 times in 87 plate appearances for Oklahoma State last year in 18 games and had very low strikeout numbers at Northwest Florida State. Before that, he has baseball in his blood. His dad, I think his dad's name is Kevin, was a big leaguer with the Pirates for a couple of years in the late 90s. Very similar type of player as well. When I think of Polcovich, I think of guys like Mark McLemore. I think of guys like one comp that I got before the draft was Frank Menachino, who actually was a pretty good role player for the A's. But I actually think Polcovich's ability to put the fat part of the bat on the ball and to drive it a little bit, despite the fact that he's only 5'8" or 5'9", pushes him past the Frank Menachinos. I think Brian Roberts light is probably the ceiling for Polcovich. And I say light because there were a few years there where Brian Roberts was like really, really good. And I think that would be asking quite a bit of Polcovich. But I do like the versatility, and the fact that he's taken to center field pretty well already is a good sign. He's going to be able to handle that spot long term. I really like him as a multi-position guy. Takes a little bit of pressure off the bat. I mean, second basemen these days are, especially because of the shift, second basemen in Major League Baseball it's becoming more and more of an offensive position. Even considering the league right now is hitting 236. Second basemen are hitting 250, 317, 397. And that's all second baseman. If we think about the second basemen that have started at least 40 of the roughly 60 games per team that have been played, those second basemen are hitting 264, 331, 416 to give you an idea. And that's based off the offensive marks in 2021. If the game changes to the baseball, changes to pitching, changes to whatever to help offenses, those numbers are only going to go up. So that gives you an idea where Polcovich would pretty much need to get. Now, if you're an elite defender, can you give a little bit on the offense? Yes. I don't know that Polcovich fits in the elite second base